Greetings, and welcome to Ealdormere at Home,
a web series dedicated to keeping the North folk connected.
And now it's time for Wolves of the Breed.
So this is Baroness Lucia for Ealdormere at Home. And would you like to introduce yourself, kind sir?
I'm Seigneur Baudouin de Domrémy.
So I hear you brew some mead sometimes.
Yeah, I've been doing it, I think, since about 1998, I think. It's been a while that I've been doing it.
So what is mead?
Mead is any brew that you make with honey and water. So it's fermented honey and water. There's a variety of different ways of making it, different types of mead that you can make. The just straight honey and water is sort of a plain hydromel, but if you add spices to it to give it various different flavors, that's called a metheglin. I've made a number of metheglins. The first mead that I made actually was called Halfdan's Viking mead. So metheglin is one of those meads. The other meads that I've made a lot of are melomels. So it's any time you blend honey and fruit. And there's some special names for some of those. So if you do honey and instead of using water, you use apple cider, you get something called a sizer, which can be very, very good. I've made a few good sizers. And obviously the typical spices that you might consider adding to that would be a little bit of clove, a little bit of cinnamon. There's also a piment, which I haven't actually done any of, which is using grape juice and honey. So it's sort of like a half wine. And then there are piment sizer. There's also a rotomel that I've always wanted to try, which is where you take rose leaves, rose flower petals, and you mix that with your mead. And I think that would make a really spectacular mead. So it's sort of the next thing on my list of things I want to try. So if you were making mead in medieval times, it was something that you did like in big batches on a regular basis. The entire facility would have been covered in natural yeasts from the fermentation process, because that's one of the things that they'll do is they'll take over that area. So you won't even really need to worry about finding a yeast to put into it. Like in medieval times, they just would let it go. They'd probably take a little bit from their former batch and add it to the next batch. So the yeast just kept going. If you're going to do a full carboy, you want about 15 pounds of honey.
Where would you get that much honey from?
Any apiary that provides honey will sell it in bulk.
Are there medieval recipes to follow, or is it?
Lots. The best place to start with learning medieval recipes is the Closet of Sir Callum Digby Opened. It's
Right.
Available on Gutenberg, so it's been scanned in, so you can go online and find it, and you can go through the whole thing.
So what's the honey-water ratio when you're making these things?
When I do a carboy is 23 liters. So it's the 15 pounds of honey and then topped up with water.
What piece of equipment is a must-have if you want to start doing mead on your own?
You have to have a fermentation vessel of some sort. I've seen people use all kinds of different things, from pop bottles to big water jugs. But for me, I have a primary fermenter, which is a big pail, and a carboy. And a carboy is just a plastic or glass shaped, basically like a barrel with a smaller area on the top. You also want to have something to keep the air from getting at your mead. So you want some kind of an airlock. So typically you can buy all this stuff really easily at any wine making place. So you go into a winemaking place and say, I'd like to get a primary fermenter, an airlock, and a carboy. They'll sell it to you for like $20-30 or something like that. You can also find people selling them on Kijiji that, oh, I've decided I'm getting out of this, I'm not going to do it anymore. And it's you can buy them for cheap that way. Hopefully we get back to normal soon, and we can all get back to living the dream.
I absolutely agree. I think that might be a good spot to leave it. Thank you so much. I love listening to people who are passionate about a topic. I'm really glad I got to do this interview, and thank you very much for your time. And I hope to see you soon.
Well, at least we can see each other virtually for now.
For sure. All right.
Hopefully we get back to it soon, and I hope that you, your family, and your friends are all staying safe and healthy.
You too.
Good morning, Ealdormere. We're today going to be working on some Ealdormere light cavalry tactics. We're going to start with flat work, which is working your horse on the flat ground. So we're going to start, there's 3 different levels. There's a beginner, which is at a walk. There's an intermediate, which is at a trot. And then there's an advanced, which is at a canter, which is almost a gallop. We're going to start by doing figure 8s. We're going to start on a diagonal. We're going to make a left-hand turn. We're going to do a figure 8 around, come back on the diagonal again. In the middle of the diagonal, we're going to stop. Make your horse stop. Then we're going to ask your horse to move along again and go around on to the right on a figure 8 this time. Coming back to the middle, then we're going to ask for your horse to stop again. And that will be the conclusion of the easy at a walk. We're going to do that for 3 different techniques for both the walk, the trot, and the canter. Buttercup Sprinkles, are you ready? Okay, we're going to ask your horse to stop. We're going to continue, ask it to move along. We're going to make a right-hand turn this time. And then on the diagonal, we're going to ask the person to stop again. Now we're going to pick up the walk and move into a trot. So we take a walk. We're going to, your horse, you're going to trot. Come on the canter, on the diagonal. We're going to ask for a walk and then to a hold. Then we're going to ask for a walk again. Then we're going to ask for a trot. So we're going to ask for a walk again and a hold. And a hold. And then we're going to move on to the next level, which is the canter. So in the canter, it's more of a gallop. So we're going to try that. All right, so we're going to ask for a walk on. Then we're going to ask for a canter. On the diagonal, you're gonna pull up on your horse a bit, and you're gonna ask for a lead change. So your leg's gonna the other way. Then you're going to ask for a walk and a halt. And then you're going to do a pirouette. And that's today's training video. Alright, now we're going to put all 3 steps together. You're going to start at a walk, move on to the trot, and then move into the canter. So, alright, Buttercup Sprinkles, are you ready? Alright, Buttercup Sprinkles, I'm going to ask you to walk on, so let's walk on. Whoa, Buttercup Sprinkles. Walk on. Whoa, Buttercup. Walk on. Drop. Whoa. Whoa. And walk on. And drop. Whoa. And walk on. And canter. Whoa. Bring it back. And lead change. Whoa. Pirouette. Whoa. Well done, Buttercup Wrinkles. And that's the conclusion.
Thank you for tuning in and for Ealdormere's Light Cavalry training video today. Stay tuned for more and we'll get a little bit more advanced. Thank you.
Let's learn more about another officer of Ealdormere.
So hello everybody, I am here today with Magistrate Nicola, who is our Kingdom Lawspeaker, and she's going to talk to us today about what the Kingdom Lawspeaker is and what she does. So welcome Nicola, and if you could just tell us a bit about yourself, that would be great.
Hi there, I've been in the SCA for 30 years. And actually that does have something to do with being Lawspeaker, because it is a position that you really need to have a long experience in the SCA to really be successful at. So other than that, I've been lots of things. I've been chroniclers, I've been heralds, I shoot archery, I do embroidery, I do calligraphy and illumination, I do all those things. But for the last 2.5 years, I've been Lawspeaker, and that is a very different position than any other one I've ever held before in the SCA.
I think the role of the Kingdom Lawspeaker is it's unique to our kingdom. So if you could tell us a bit about what your role is as the Kingdom Lawspeaker, and let people know what it is that you do.
Sure, you are completely correct. A little bit of a history lesson. When Ealdormere went kingdom over 20 years ago now, it's like 22 years, they created the position of Lawspeaker at that time, and actually was somewhat controversial when this happened, because no other kingdom had anything quite like it. And the position of Lawspeaker is actually based on Icelandic law, and there was a person in Iceland during the period that we consider the Icelandic Commonwealth, who was essentially the head elected official in Iceland, presided over law courts, presided over the legislative assembly there from all the chieftains and the judges and such, and every year recited 1/3 of the law from memory. So they usually serve 3 years, just like I served 3 years. I wonder where they got that. And they were also the person that was responsible for really knowing the law inside and out, and providing clarification on laws, and also in handling disputes and assemblies. So that's kind of what I do in Ealdormere. The duties are somewhat similar, of course, adapted for our game, but very real world type duties that are involved in being Lawspeaker. So that's a little bit of the history, and that's what's involved. So the main two things you do is you preside over the moot, which happens once per reign, as well as being a person that people can go to if they have concerns, if they have disputes that they would like to have mediated. And that sort of thing where just simply going to the kingdom officer or their local officer, maybe that didn't quite work and they want somebody who's neutral to step in and be able to do some mediation.
So, so one of the things that you mentioned is the kingdom moot, which is a major function of the Lawspeaker's job. And I think the part of the job that, the part of the office that the kingdom as a whole sees you actively doing, because it happens each reign. So could you tell us more about the kingdom moots and how they work?
Yeah, sure. So the kingdom moot, as in kingdom law, happens once per reign. And at the kingdom moot, if you've never gotten to see one, I highly recommend it. It will happen again at some point. Everybody takes off their crowns or cornets and regalia and such, because we all speak as equals in the moot. And that is a chance for anybody in the kingdom to bring up things that are of a concern to the kingdom, or maybe projects you want to see happen, or just things that are in discussion. They can be positive things, they can be not so positive things. They're all about what can we do in Ealdormere to make our experience in Ealdormere better for Ealdormere. So in the past, we've had all kinds of things like, for instance, how can we better support demos, and how can we support Comic-Cons, and I'm thinking of just recent ones where we've had these discussions, or how can we support inclusivity and diversity in Ealdormere. So where we can all talk about these issues as Ealdormerians, and really, as opposed to just having that that societal level discussion, we can discuss it as Ealdormere. And then the people who can make things happen can take these things back, and we can make changes, and we can adopt things, or we can encourage each other to do things that other people have found successful.
So then you talked about the other function of the Lawspeaker's role, which is to help with disputes. Is there anything else that you maybe wanted to say about that?
Yeah, that's kind of the hard part of being a Lawspeaker, and that's where things get very, very serious. I mean, the moots are great, and they're often a great time to hear about what's going well and to encourage people to do better. But we do know that people have disputes, and our kingdom does pretty well, I think, in settling a lot of the disputes before they ever get to the point where they would need somebody to help step in and mediate. But if ever that does happen, we have a process in kingdom law to handle that, starting with assuming that things have not worked out at the local level or between individuals, that a person could approach the Lawspeaker and say, I'm having an issue with another person. Can we have a discussion, and can we have a mediation? And that would be the first step in that, is the Lawspeaker would sit down with that individual, find out what the issue is, and then eventually be talking to the other person or people involved in the dispute, and hopefully bring people together to have a discussion, to work on a problem, work on a solution that's going to benefit both parties and be a successful outcome. And it's not used for the sort of disputes where somebody is doing something illegal. Those go through the legal means, the kingdom seneschal and the other officers and that sort of thing. We're talking about the kind of disputes where it just doesn't seem to be working to have people resolve them by simply talking to each other, and maybe they want a neutral party to step in and be that eyes and ears. And if that process doesn't work, there's a whole chain of other mechanisms for the dispute to continue to be worked on, to be resolved, all the way up through a court of chivalry, which our kingdom has never had a court of chivalry. So I guess we've figured out for the most part how to resolve these disputes. So work, but I'm a good resource if you need to talk to someone to find out who can help with that. When you just want to bounce things off me, I'm happy to listen. That's my job, listening.
Well, and that's a really helpful resource for people, because you don't always know where to go, or you might not have an idea of even where to start on how to work things out sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we're all people, and sometimes we don't all get along.
And especially now that we have the society taking an interest in making sure that events are inclusive and that we're following the society's anti-bullying policies, which continue to evolve. I expect that they will continue to evolve what they're offering and the resources that they're making available as well. So it's something I've kept an eye on as that has evolved as well. And I'm also, being Lawspeaker means I'm familiar with the laws, and not just the kingdom laws. I know corpora. I generally know how the sanctions process works. I know what's in it, what isn't in it. And I have a fairly deep knowledge of basically how law works in both the kingdom and the society. So the way the Lawspeaker is chosen is quite unique. It's chosen, people write in. This process is going to be happening soon because my term is up in another 7 months or so. So people write in and nominate people for the position of Lawspeaker. I mean, you say if you want to do it, obviously, and you get 12 people to nominate you for that. Once you're approved as a candidate, then it goes out to a vote that takes place in each individual group. And the seneschal for each individual group, after consulting with the members of that group, casts the vote for who they want the Lawspeaker to be. And then once that happens, there's a special oath that I swear, which is directly to the people. It's kind of like fealty, but it's fealty to Ealdormere, not to the crown. And that is the only oath I swear at all during my term. And the other thing I think which should be fairly obvious to this, is that everything that is brought to me, I keep in confidence. Obviously not moot questions and things like that, but if people come to me with a concern, I keep confidence about that. Any time the Lawspeaker does anything other than the moot, really, those discussions are confidential, and I don't tell their majesties, I don't tell the kingdom seneschal. I use the resources. I will occasionally go and speak to other formal Lawspeakers who know the job, but it's confidential. And that's part of what the oath is.
Which is a very important part of that job.
Yep. I'm still here if people in this time of isolation and we're sitting around doing things by Zoom, we are still a kingdom, we are still a people. There are still things that we might, when next we have a moot, want to talk about. Maybe there'll be things that have been learned from this time in isolation that we've learned about ourselves. And so my ears are open. The same thing goes for the more serious parts of it. And that even includes things like, again, if you are wondering what's going on with corpora or with society level things, or just have questions about how that all works, I'm here. Feel free to reach out. Lawspeaker@gmail.com. That's our email address, and that just goes to me. And I'm happy to talk to people and happy to listen and give advice if needed and help people through good things and not so good things. And also stay tuned for the announcement again if you're interested in my job. We want somebody to be interested in my job, and if that sounds like a challenge that you feel like you have a calling to take it, please apply when the time comes.
Well, thank you so very much, Nicola, for telling us about what you do and giving us all more information about the Kingdom Lawspeaker. So thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And now for a bardic interlude.
I'm for the Holy Land sailing to win back Jerusalem's walls. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, and I'll win a fortune nor martyr I'll fall. As my ship sails out, I watch the far coastline, for leaving of kinsmen my heart is full pained. And I've traded all for a cross on my shoulder, the land for a third son, so I'm away. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, to win back Jerusalem's walls. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, and I'll win a fortune or martyr I'll fall. As I look around me at the men on the benches, their eyes are like mine, so I know their heart's pain. I sing them a song of bravery and battle, and now their eyes shine like their keen polished blades. We're for the Holy Land sailing, to win back Jerusalem's walls. We're for the Holy Land sailing, and we'll win our fortunes or martyr will fall. I followed King Richard to Sicily Island, for Joanna's dowry against Tancred prevailed. Now a fortune in silver and a new wife have Richard, and I've a swift horse and a new coat of mail. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, to win back Jerusalem's walls. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, and I'll win a fortune or martyr I'll fall. At landfall in Cyprus they refused Berengaria, and Richard in anger has answered with steel. Now the crown of Cyprus he's added to England, and I've added knighthood's gold spurs to my heel. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, to win back Jerusalem's walls. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, and I'll win a fortune or martyr I'll fall. I followed the banner to battle at Acre, and held it aloft when its bearer was slain. Now we've given Richard a tower of the city, he's given me rank and a full captain's pay. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, to win back Jerusalem's walls. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, and I'll win a fortune or martyr I'll fall. At Arsuf on the coastline we met with the paymen. We won the battle though many were slain, and one was a baron with lands that need tending. Now they are mine and I'll tend them well. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, to win back Jerusalem's walls. I'm for the Holy Land sailing, and I'll win a fortune or martyr I'll fall. Now I sit in court over Christian and Muslim, and I've a strong keep and soldiers 10 score. King Richard's army has sailed back to England, and I said farewell, for I'll see them no more. For I'm in the Holy Land staying, to guard my own castle walls. I'm in the Holy Land staying, for I've won my fortune, so farewell to all.
Time for another Artisan Spotlight.
Welcome to my shop. We're going to make some spoons.
Meet Iohn Spooner. He has been working wood with hand tools as a hobby for decades, long before the SCA found him. He makes just about anything, from turning furniture to carving. A longtime member of the Association of Pole Lathe Turners, he has twice been on the winning team for the log to leg race in the UK, a humorous more than prestigious contest. One of the more mundane things Iohn makes is spoons. Everyone needs a spoon, from our queen to the lowest serf. The spoon is what we eat with. Well, that or your fingers, and maybe your knife. Since we are courtly and mannered folk, we use a spoon. Spoons have probably been around since about half an hour after soup was invented. You can find examples from just about every time period. They can be plain or decorated, made of wood, metal, bone, or horn. John makes his spoons from wood because he's a woodworker. Wood selection is important. Green wood is easy to carve. Dry wood is much harder. It might warp or crack, but in a small item like a spoon, that's usually not a worry. Resinous wood like cedar will work, but all your food will taste like cedar. Porous wood like oak will pick up food particles in the pores, which can be unsanitary. Maple, cherry, and birch are excellent woods for spoons.
So there's the spoon drawn on there.
John uses a hatchet and saw for rough work. This gets rid of a lot of the wood quickly and easily. The saw and hatchet make short work of the bulk of the waste, and the hatchet will quickly get you near the final shape and size you want. For hollowing the bowl of the spoon, you need a curved chisel called a gouge or a hook knife. A vise or clamp can be used to hold the wood, but many spoon carvers just hold the work in their hands. John uses a sharp knife to finish off the spoon. A good sharp knife is indispensable. The knife will do almost all the work if you're patient. Remember the rule, never cut towards yourself? Spoon carvers violate this rule constantly, but there are safe ways to do it. It is remarkably easy to make the bowl too big or too deep. You want a spoon that actually fits in your mouth. If you want to learn spoon carving, look for John at an event. Classes are available by chance or appointment.
Magistra Nicola, I have today's report.
Thank you. I'd love to hear it.
Unfortunately, we have bad news from Skryling Allthing. It seems the Baron has gone missing.
Oh no.
We have reports that his horses returned to stable without him, and investigations has shown that there might have been a struggle, but we don't know much else.
That's very interesting. Sounds like you have a few details. Have you learned anything else?
We haven't learned much else yet, but it seems that there was a torn piece of shirt at the scene, says reports.
Well, it sounds like we have a bit of a mystery on our hand, and as Lawspeaker, I'm glad you came to me, because one of the things that I do is to make sure that when we have a dispute or any other thing where there might have been some sort of breach of our kingdom laws and of the peace, that I investigate these issues. And by investigate, myself, it doesn't necessarily mean that I will investigate everything myself, but it's usually an important thing to find some good neutral people around that can ask questions without raising suspicion. Would you be willing to help me in this matter as one of my investigators?
I will.
Excellent. So you will be my agent. But these things are never done well just by one person. I think you should have some help. And I've heard there's a gentleman named Reese that might be a good person to be your partner. Would you be willing to work with him to investigate, to find out what happened?
He seems like a good man. I shall take him on.
Sounds good. I will also make sure their majesties are aware of this issue, and that I am on the case and that I have diligent investigators working for me. I often employ investigators and other such people to work for me, so that is an important thing to know. They will be familiar with this, and they will know that I am known for getting results in my investigations.
I will find out what happened.
Excellent. So good luck, and please let me know if there's any other questions I can answer. I'm always happy to help and to make sure that we get justice for whoever did this dastardly deed.
And now look at our histories.
Hello, I'd like to welcome Dame Xivia Bastamaro V'Amberview to Ealdormere at Home. Dame Xivia is here to talk today on the early days of Ealdormere. So would you mind giving us a brief introduction of yourself and how you got started in the SCA?
Well, I live in Caldrithig. I'm the founder of the Barony Skraeling Althing. One of the founders, the person that brought the idea up here. And I am a part-time university professor. That's my full-time regular gig at the University of Ottawa. And my family was in Arizona from 1970 to 1973. My dad was out of town on business, and my mom saw this little blurb in the daily paper about a little medieval festival at a park. And so she, my sister, and myself, Lady Caroline de Villiers d'Amberview, and our next door neighbor and her 2 kids. So we've got 2 adults and 4 kids, shoehorned ourselves into a Datsun B210. That's the Nissan, the old days. And off we went. The adults weren't that interested, and I don't know what the boys did, but my sister and I were like hook, line, sinker, neck, boat. Yes! And it was the first demo of what became the second barony in the Kingdom of Ealdormere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It would have been March or April of 1971, so that's AS5 coming on to AS6.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what were the events like back then? Were they pretty small? There's still like those big scale feasts or anything?
Depends on where and what. Events before we had the term Ealdormere, we totally baffled the Americans up here. We did. Because there was a definite culture gap between what was then the group Skraeling Althing up here in Ottawa, and that was the name of the incipient canton of the incipient barony of Septentria. And so all of Ontario wanted to be one barony, and the Americans thought we were nuts because they're all independent, live free or die, and the notion of all wanting to be a unified collection of subgroups, they were like, don't you guys want to become baronies? No, not particularly. And so that there are real cultural differences between the SCA in Canada, and I can say that because some of the things that we share with Avical, for instance, second Canada-only kingdom,
right,
are unique to the Canadian culture in a way that the Americans are a little different. And so even up here, we had reasonable sized events, not in the very beginning. I mean, in the very beginning, if you got 25 people sitting down for feast, you were doing really well. But you could get, I mean, it wasn't very many years before we were getting 60 people sitting at feast and 60, 70 people, maybe a little more, attending the whole event. And what did an event look like? We didn't, as I say, again, we didn't have rapier. We didn't have a lot of the activities that we try and all fold into an event now. So booking sites was easier because you didn't quite the same scope of facilities
Right.
And, you know, cities and regions weren't trying to pay their way by upping, you know, club booking costs.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would frequently have either a sit-down feast or potluck. Potlucks in the beginning were a real big thing.
Yeah.
Be either historical or kind of historically inspired.
Oh,
You know,
very cool.
potato salad, not so much, avoid it. And just everybody pitched in and everybody chipped in on working on stuff. And, you know, it's when we got a chance to stretch your stuff at the local area level.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you start introducing things like rapier and was there a lot of like arts and science at the start, or did that kind of come in a little bit?
Oh yeah, we have always, right back to the first couple of years, and I mean, I walk in at 5, okay? We have always had parallel and overlapping groups. We weren't in we weren't big enough to have subgroups yet.
Right.
And so, you know, a lot of the fighters might also do some brewing, and people who were researching and making, you know, more and more period, that took a while, costumes. We didn't have as many metal workers doing jewelry and pewter casting, but you know, most of the metal workers were making armor. Right. So first you start dealing with the 2 or 3 big focuses. Arts and sciences, I mean, what was Scrail, Caldridic, this area, was very arts and sciences driven for a long time. Now, Viscount Sir Mordain, Black Cloak, you know, things would happen in the baronial seat, which was far more often down around Toronto than up here. And we'd do the 5.5-hour drive. We'd go to the event and there'd be court. And inevitably, the Baron and Baroness would call up the armed might of Scraling Althing, and Sir Mordain would stand up and he would walk forward because he was our only fighter.
Oh.
You know, I mean, I was kind of a standing joke for a few years. He and Grasser Hugo, who does not live here at all anymore, and I'm not sure he even plays anymore. He became a Count of Graf. He and Mordain, and I'm forgetting Finbar's 3rd squire. 2 of his 3 squires in those days were all lefties.
Oh, wow.
Lefty rattan fighters. I mean, what is it? 1 in 10 people are a lefty. Finbar, as I recall, is a lefty, although he can switch. He's a good switch fighter.
Yeah.
And so we were cranking out, you know, unbeatable rattan fighters out of this area because their first choice was left. Most people in other areas didn't have any lefties to practice with. And it was bing, bang, and down they went. It's hysterical.
Wow.
So we had a somewhat unique fighting culture. You know, and I was in the day, I was the only person that was doing non-court period music, and that went on for a long, long, long time. So I was very isolated with my first choice of artistic work. And
so what was it like trying to make those first pieces of garb? I know now you can just go to Fabricland and get linen or order it online. How hard was it to get in research and then get that period material to get the clothes?
People who were deeply interested in historical costuming and accuracy had a lot of challenges, and a lot of what you wanted to work with was very expensive. So, you know, most of us followed the 10-foot rule, and the 10-foot rule was, if it looks good from 10 feet, wear it. You know, my gosh, I was so thrilled the very first time I went to an academic conference in England. So that would have been, oh my gosh, 1993 or so.
And the year I was born.
There you go. Well, I've got a bolt of fabric in the basement who's as old as you are. And I went to, oh my gosh, Shepherd's, I think it's called Shepherd's Cross. There's a really monstrous, you know, kind of flea market, bazaar, like just crazy. Everywhere in the world that you can buy almost anything you want there, usually all the legal stuff anyhow. And one place was just selling bolt fabric, and they had, it was probably sheet material. So it was a 60-40 cotton polyester blend.
Okay.
Doesn't wrinkle as much as I'm wearing right now, which is 100% linen. And it was essentially block print. Each was about this big gold fleurs-de-lis. It was a fleurs-de-lis in 6-inch wide white fabric.
Oh,
and I was like, I'll take all of that, because it was, I don't know, a pound and a half, a yard.
Wow.
And shipped it home in the mail. So that, you know, I mean, even as late as the early 1990s, finding something like that where you weren't doing your own block printing on a solid fabric was just a huge score.
Yeah.
Time for another installment of Projects. Duchess Domhnail Galbraith and Baron Corwyn Galbraith recently returned from a unique pilgrimage to the south shore of Georgian Bay, east of Killarney in Ontario. Since summer camping events, SCA and otherwise, were cancelled this year, they decided to have an extended, isolated camping excursion. As their destination did not require portaging, they were able to fully load their 17-foot Prospector canoe with items that included a small Viking A-frame, fire irons, wooden bucket, stool, forged Viking frying pan, small cauldron, bag of charcoal, some pottery, wooden cups and bowls, linen and woolen garb, and as much fresh food as they could. As both are deeply interested in cooking, they brought several recipes with them to try out while they traveled the Whale Road. They paddled down the Chickanishing River, exiting into the bay, and faced choppy water with swells half a meter high, while they crossed towards Philip Edward Island. They found a lagoon in a channel looking out into the bay and set up both a modern and a period Viking campsite surrounded by fresh, moving water. In their Viking site, they erected the A-frame and set up a canvas lean-to as a kitchen shelter. A latrine was fashioned a goodly distance away from the camp and the water to avoid contamination. They built a fire pit on the bare rocks to avoid the risk of wildfire. They found a discarded, rusted-out Coleman stove, which they converted into a firebox filled with charcoal. This would allow them to cook under the lean-to in the event of inclement weather. While so ensconced, they were able to swim, canoe, and hike about the local area. They gathered rocks, brush, and wood, and were fortunate to supplement some meals with foraged items, including blueberries, blackberries, and juniper berries. They were also able to try their hand at fishing. Some of the meals they prepared included a grey pea and smoked ham soup, Burka bread made with barley flour and leftover peas, egg omelets with hard cheese and garden leeks, fried trout, thin slices of beef heart marinated in bacon fat with juniper berry, crepes with cheese and stewed fruits, dark bread with fresh-made cheeses, and a stew of dried meat and mushrooms. All the greens and seasoning were grown in their garden. Leeks, sage, lovage, chive, spinach, kale, beet greens, and thyme. Day trips included canoeing across the bright blue bay, exploring the glacial smooth islands, stony spider-infested beaches, yellow lichen-colored cliffs, calm backwater channels, elder pine woods, and thick marshy swamps. The weather ranged from hot and sunny to thunder-rumbling rainy downpours. They both enjoyed the extended experience, being able to use their equipment and clothing to the fullest, appreciating the history of daily Viking life.
This just in. Breaking news. We take you now live to the King of Ealdormere.
Greetings of Ealdormere. It's with sad news that I come to you today. Baron Dafydd of Skraeling Althing has gone missing. On September 6th, while traveling within his barony, his horse returned to the stable without its rider. When warriors were dispatched to retrace the signs, there was a sign of a struggle and a ripped part of his tunic. We assume that the good Baron has been kidnapped, and we plead for his safe return. The good Baroness of Skraeling is distraught without her good husband. We feel our eastern border is not secure at this time. Any information that you can get to the safe return of Baron Dafydd, we would appreciate.
To keep up to date on this developing story, make sure you keep an eye on the official Kingdom of Ealdormere YouTube channel. That's it for this episode.
If you'd like to appear as a guest or have a story for Ealdormere at home, please check out our submission guidelines.
Until next time,
stay safe, Ealdormere.
We'll see you at home.